Admiral Zekthar stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking at the viewing screen with cold eyes. 3 small ships floated in space ahead of them. They looked weak and simple compared to his giant war vessels. The ships had strange markings on their sides and moved in patterns he did not understand. Unknown vessels, Zekthar spoke into his communication device. His voice was deep and threatening. You have entered space controlled by the Hegemony Empire. Prepare to be boarded and processed. For many years, Zekthar had given this same message to hundreds of different alien species. Usually the aliens would panic. Some would cry and beg for mercy. Others would try to fight and fail quickly. A few would stay silent and hope the hegemony would leave them alone. But none of that happened this time. Instead, a strange sound came from the human ships. It sounded like laughing and excited talking. Then a woman's voice responded, and she sounded happy. Hello there. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Ship Defiance. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. We are humans from a planet called Earth. This is amazing. We have been hoping to meet other intelligent life for so long. Zekthar looked at his officers. They all had confused expressions on their faces. Lieutenant Vextar checked his translation system twice to make sure it was working correctly. Did she say thank you? Asked Commander Hekimol. On the viewing screen, they could see inside the human ship. The bridge was full of people wearing blue uniforms. Every single human was smiling. Some were pointing at the hegemony ships and talking excitedly to each other. One human was even taking pictures with a small device. Captain Chen appeared on the main screen. She was a woman with dark hair tied back neatly. Her eyes were bright and she could not stop smiling. Behind her, other humans were moving around the bridge, but they all kept looking at the screen and grinning. We would love to exchange information about our cultures, Captain Chen continued. Do you have any data packages you could share? We brought some gifts from Earth, music, art, stories, and information about our history. Would you like to see them? Admiral Zekthar had conquered 47 different worlds. He had destroyed entire fleets. Whole civilizations feared his name, but he had never encountered anything like this before. The humans acted like meeting his war fleet was the best thing that had ever happened to them. You do not understand. Your situation, Zekthar said, trying to sound more threatening. We are the hegemony. We control this part of the galaxy. You will surrender your ships and submit to our authority. The humans on the bridge started talking to each other in excited whispers. Captain Chen nodded politely. That sounds like an interesting government system, she said. We would love to learn more about how your empire works. But humans prefer to stay independent. We have our own government back on Earth. Maybe we could set up some kind of diplomatic relationship instead. One of the humans behind Captain Chen, a man with brown hair, leaned forward and whispered something in her ear. She nodded, and her smile got even bigger. Actually, Captain Chen said, my science officer has a great idea. Since we just met, maybe we could have some friendly competitions to learn about each other. Humans love games and contests. Do your people enjoy competitive activities? Lieutenant Vextar turned to Admiral Zekthar. Sir, I think their translation system might be broken. They seem to think we are here for social activities. But Zekthar was beginning to understand that the translation was working perfectly. These humans really were this strange. On the human ship, a young man in uniform approached Captain Chen. He was trying not to laugh, but his eyes were bright with excitement. Captain, he said, permission to speak freely? Go ahead, Torres, Captain Chen replied. This is so cool, Torres said, unable to hide his grin. I mean, this is exactly like all those science fiction movies we grew up watching. The mysterious alien empire, the first contact scenario, everything. My little brother is going to be so jealous when I tell him about this. Captain Chen chuckled. I know, right? I keep expecting someone to yell cut and tell us the cameras stopped rolling. Admiral Zekthar watched this exchange with growing confusion. Were these humans treating a military confrontation like entertainment? You seem to misunderstand the seriousness of this situation, Zekthar said. This is not a game. We are a military force. You are being given the opportunity to surrender peacefully. Oh, we understand completely, Captain Chen said cheerfully. You have big ships and lots of weapons. Very impressive. But humans don't really do the whole surrendering thing. It's not in our nature. We prefer to talk things out or have some kind of fair competition to settle disagreements. She paused and looked at something off-screen. Actually, our military historians are getting really excited. They want to know if you would be interested in some war games. Nothing with real weapons, of course. Just tactical exercises. We could learn a lot from each other. Commander Heckmole leaned over to Admiral Zekthar. Sir, what are war games? I believe they are referring to military training exercises, Zekthar replied quietly, but they appear to want to conduct them with us. During a conquest, I am beginning to think these humans do not realize they are being conquered. On the screen, more humans had gathered behind Captain Chen. They were all looking at the hegemony ships with expressions of wonder and excitement. One woman was taking notes on a tablet. A man in engineering uniform was pointing at different parts of the hegemony vessels and explaining something to his colleagues. Your ships are beautiful, Captain Chen said. The engineering must be incredible. How do you generate that much power? And those weapon arrays, are they plasma-based or some kind of particle beam system? Those weapons are pointed at your ship, Admiral Zekthar said slowly. I know. Isn't it exciting? Captain Chen's eyes lit up. We have been imagining this moment for decades. First contact with an advanced alien civilization. This is the greatest day in human history. A young human woman approached Captain Chen and whispered something urgent in her ear. Captain Chen nodded and turned back to the screen. Admiral Zekthar, our communications officer, has been monitoring your fleet's signals. Your technology is fascinating. We would love to set up a cultural exchange program. We could share scientific knowledge, artistic traditions, maybe even sports and games. Do your people play sports? Admiral Zekthar felt something he had never experienced in his long military career. Complete bewilderment. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever responded to his war fleet by asking about sports. We do not play, he said firmly. We conquer. That sounds like a very serious lifestyle, Captain Chen said sympathetically. All work and no play makes for a stressful existence. Maybe we could show you some fun human activities? We brought playing cards, board games, sports equipment, even a guitar. The humans on the bridge started discussing something among themselves. They were all talking at once, their voices full of excitement and energy. Captain, said the man called Torres, should we show them the drone footage of the soccer match? We played on the moon last month? Great idea, Captain Chen turned back to Admiral Zekthar. Would you like to see humans playing sports in low gravity? It's really quite entertaining. Admiral Zekthar closed the communication channel and turned to his officers. They all stared back at him with expressions of total confusion. Sir, said Lieutenant Vextar, what do we do with aliens who want to play games with us? Admiral Zekthar did not have an answer. Admiral Zekthar decided to try a different approach. He opened the communication channel again and made his voice as cold and threatening as possible. Humans of Earth, he began, you will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your ships and crew will be processed according to hegemony protocols. Resistance will result in the destruction of your vessels. Captain Chen listened carefully, nodding as if she was taking notes. When he finished speaking, she smiled even wider. That's a very generous offer, Admiral, but we'll have to pass. Humans are pretty attached to their freedom. But hey, since we're both military organizations, why don't we have a friendly competition instead? We could test our skills against each other without anyone getting hurt. Behind her, the human crew started cheering and clapping their hands. One man pumped his fist in the air like his favorite sports team had just scored a goal. Yes, shouted. Torres, I called dibs on the fighter pilot competition. No fair, said another human. I've been training for first contact scenarios since I was 12. Captain Chen held up her hand for quiet. Sorry about that, Admiral. My crew gets excited about new challenges. We have some really competitive people on board. Admiral Zekthar looked at Commander Heckmol. Are they treating this like a sporting event? I believe so, sir, Heckmol replied. Their behavior suggests they find this situation enjoyable. On the human ship, a woman in science officer uniform approached Captain Chen. She was trying to look professional, but she kept grinning. Captain, the aliens have some fascinating technology. Their energy signatures are off the charts, and look at the design of those ships. The engineering principles alone could advance human science by decades. I know, right? Captain Chen replied. This is like Christmas morning, and my birthday all rolled into one. Admiral Zekthar decided to demonstrate the seriousness of the situation. He ordered his weapons officer to charge the main batteries and move the fleet into attack formation. The massive hegemony ships moved slowly into position, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Instead of showing fear, the humans became even more excited. Oh, wow, look at that formation, said Torres. That's a classic pincer movement with covering fire support. Textbook military tactics. Captain Chen was practically bouncing in her chair. This is incredible. We're seeing real alien military strategies in action. The War College back on Earth is going to flip when they see these recordings. Captain, said the science officer, are you getting readings on those energy weapons? The power output is amazing. I know. Captain Chen turned back to Admiral Zekthar. Your tactical formations are beautiful, very elegant. Whoever designed your military doctrine is a real artist. Do you mind if we record this for educational purposes? Admiral Zekthar stared at the screen. In 300 years of military service, no enemy had ever asked permission to record their own destruction. You realize we are preparing to attack you, he said slowly. Of course, Captain Chen replied cheerfully. And we're prepared to defend ourselves. This is going to be the most educational first contact scenario in human history. Our military academies will be studying this for generations. A new human appeared on screen. An older man with gray hair and the insignia of a high-ranking officer. Admiral E. Zekthar, the man said. I'm General Morrison, military advisor to this mission. I have to say your fleet deployment is impressive, very professional. I've been studying military tactics for 40 years, and I've never seen formations quite like yours. You study warfare? Zekthar asked. Oh, yes, General Morrison replied with enthusiasm. Humans love military history and strategy. We have thousands of books about famous battles, great generals, clever tactics. Wargaming is one of our most popular hobbies. Hobbies? You know, things we do for fun in our spare time. Humans play war games the same way other people play cards or sports. We have computer simulations, board games, role-playing scenarios. Some people spend their whole weekends refighting historical battles with miniature armies. Admiral Zekthar felt a strange sensation in his head. He had heard about this feeling from other species. They called it a headache. You play at war. For entertainment? He asked. Absolutely, said Captain Chen. And now we get to see how real professionals do it. This is like meeting our heroes. The human called Torres was consulting a tablet device. Captain, I've been analyzing their ship movements. They're using a modified Raken formation with enhanced fire support positioning. It's brilliant. Where did you learn about Raken formations? Admiral Zekthar demanded. Oh, that's from one of our strategy games, Torres replied casually. Battlefleet Commander 3000. Great game. The Raken were this fictional alien empire with really smart military tactics. Looks like the game designers got pretty close to the real thing. Lieutenant Vextar leaned over to Admiral Zekthar. Sir, they have games that simulate military conflicts with fictional alien empires? Apparently so, Zekthar replied weakly. Captain Chen was scrolling through something on her screen. Admiral, We've been going through our cultural database, and we have hundreds of stories about first contact with galactic empires. Most of them involve some kind of conflict or competition. It's one of humanity's favorite story themes. You write stories about meeting us? Zekthar asked. Not specifically you, General Morrison explained, but we've been imagining scenarios like this for over a century. Books, movies, games, military simulations. The basic setup is always the same. Humans meet advanced aliens, there's some kind of conflict, and then either we fight or we become friends. Sometimes both, added Torres. Fight first, friends later. Very popular plot structure. Captain Chen nodded enthusiastically. The point is, we've been preparing for this our whole lives. Every human child grows up reading stories about space battles and alien encounters. This isn't just first contact for us, it's like all our dreams coming true at once. Admiral Zekthar watched as more humans gathered on the bridge. They were all looking at his ships with expressions of wonder and excitement. Some were taking pictures, others were making sketches. One young woman was actually drawing pictures of the hegemony vessels in a notebook. Are your people always this enthusiastic about dangerous situations? He asked. Pretty much, Captain Chen replied. Humans get excited about challenges. The bigger the challenge, the more excited we get. And meeting an advanced alien empire, that's about as big as it gets. But we could destroy you, Admiral Zekthar pointed out. You could try, said General Morrison with a grin. But humans are pretty good at not dying. We've had a lot of practice. Practice? Wars, disasters, dangerous exploration, extreme sports, Captain Chen listed. Humans are always doing risky things and finding ways to survive them. It's kind of our specialty. Torres looked up from his tablet. Captain, should we show them our defensive capabilities? I think they might be interested in our point defense systems. Great idea. Captain Chen turned back to Admiral Zekthar. Would you like to see some human military technology? We've been working on space combat systems for decades, just in case we ever met someone like you. Just in case? Well, we figured it was better to be prepared, Captain Chen said. Most of our science fiction stories suggested that first contact might involve some kind of conflict, so we designed our space fleet accordingly. Admiral Zekthar realized something disturbing. These humans had not just imagined meeting his empire, they had specifically prepared for it. You built your military to fight galactic empires? He asked. Among other things, General Morrison replied. We also prepared for space pirates, robot invasions, interdimensional threats, and alien parasites. Humans like to cover all the possibilities. This is insane, Commander Heckmole whispered, but Admiral Zekthar was beginning to think it might be something else entirely. Admiral Zekthar decided that the humans needed to understand the true power of the hegemony. He would show them what happened to species that refused to surrender. Weapons officer, he commanded, target the asteroid at coordinate 77 Mark IV. Prepare planet cracker beam. Yes, sir, replied the weapons officer. Admiral Zekthar opened the communication channel to the human ships. You seem to think this is some kind of game. Allow me to demonstrate the reality of your situation. On the viewing screen, Captain Chen and her crew watched with interest as the massive hegemony dreadnought powered up its main weapon. The front of the ship began to glow with blue energy. Oh, wow, said Torres. Look at that energy buildup. The power readings are incredible. Everyone quiet, Captain Chen said. I think they're about to show us something important. The planet cracker beam fired. A brilliant lance of energy reached across space and struck a large asteroid. For a moment, the asteroid glowed like a small sun. Then it exploded into thousands of pieces, each piece smaller than a pebble. When the light faded, there was nothing left but space dust and glowing particles. Admiral Zekthar expected to see fear on the human faces. Instead, the entire bridge erupted in applause and cheering. That was amazing, Captain Chen shouted over the noise. Did you see the energy conversion rate? The beam coherence was perfect. Torres was jumping up and down. The targeting system must be incredibly precise. And the power source. How do you generate that much energy? The science officer was frantically taking readings with her instruments. Captain, the energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. This technology is centuries ahead of ours. I know, Captain Chen replied, clapping her hands together. Isn't it wonderful? Admiral Zekthar stared at the screen in disbelief. I just destroyed an asteroid. Yes, said General Morrison, appearing back on screen. That was beautiful. The precision, the power control, the clean destruction pattern. Your weapons engineers are masters of their craft. That weapon could destroy your ships just as easily, Zekthar pointed out. Probably, Captain Chen agreed cheerfully. But it was still amazing to watch. Do you have any technical specifications you could share? Our engineers would love to study the principles behind that energy beam. Behind her, a man in engineering uniform was waving his hands excitedly. Captain, Captain! Did you see how the beam maintained coherence over that distance? The field stabilization technology alone is revolutionary. Captain Chen turned to him. I know, Hansen. Make sure you're recording everything. The folks back at the Mars shipyards are going to want to see this. Already on it, Hansen replied, holding up a recording device. This is going to change everything we know about directed energy weapons. Admiral Zekthar looked at his officers. Commander Heckmol was shaking his head slowly. Sir, Heckmol said quietly, I think they enjoyed watching us destroy that asteroid. They applauded, Lieutenant Vexitar added. I have never seen anyone applaud a weapons demonstration before. On the human ship, Captain Chen was talking to someone off-screen. She turned back to Admiral Zekthar with an even bigger smile. Admiral, my engineers have a question. Would you be interested in seeing our prototype asteroid destruction system? It's not as advanced as yours, but we're pretty proud of it. You have asteroid destruction weapons? Zekthar asked. Well, we call them kinetic bombardment systems, Captain Chen explained. They're really just modified mining equipment, but they work pretty well for breaking up rocks. General Morrison nodded. Humans have been mining asteroids for decades. When you spend that much time blowing up rocks in space, you get pretty good at it. Mining? Admiral Zekthar was confused. Oh yes, said Hansen, the engineer. Asteroid mining is big business for humans. Iron, nickel, platinum, rare earth elements. Much easier to dig them out of asteroids than to haul them up from planetary gravity wells. Captain Chen pointed to something off-screen. Hansen, show our new friends the orbital thunder system. With pleasure, Captain. Hansen's eyes lit up, like a child on Christmas morning. On the human ship's external cameras, Admiral Zekthar could see mechanical systems moving into position. Large cylindrical objects emerged from the ship's cargo bay. These are kinetic impactors, Hansen explained happily. Basically, very dense metal rods accelerated to very high speeds. Simple physics. Mass times velocity equals impact force. 1 of the human ships fired 3 metal rods at a different asteroid. The rods moved so fast they were almost invisible. When they hit the asteroid, the impact was enormous. The entire rock shattered into fragments that scattered in all directions. The human crew cheered again. Not bad for repurposed mining gear, Torres commented. Admiral Zekthar watched the debris field spreading through space. The human weapon had been almost as effective as his planet cracker beam, but much simpler. You built weapons from mining? Equipment? He asked. Not weapons exactly, Hansen corrected. Those are industrial tools. We use them for breaking up asteroids so we can process the materials. But I guess they work pretty well for ship-to-ship combat, too. You guess? Captain Chen shrugged. We've never actually fought anyone in space before, but we've run thousands of computer simulations. Our military planners figured that if we ever met hostile aliens, kinetic weapons would be effective against most ship designs. You planned for this? Admiral Zekthar felt that headache sensation getting worse. Of course, said General Morrison. Every major military in human history has planned for fighting wars they hoped would never happen. That's what military planning is for. Torres was consulting his tablet again. Captain, our tactical computers have finished analyzing the hegemony. Weapons systems. The energy output is consistent with fusion-powered particle beam arrays. Very sophisticated, but not beyond human engineering capabilities. Excellent, Captain Chen replied. Make a note to share that analysis with the defense contractors back home. They'll want to start working on improvements to our shield systems. Admiral, Zekthar was beginning to understand something disturbing about these humans. They were not just prepared for galactic warfare. They were excited about it. Your entire civilization prepares for war? He asked. Not exactly, Captain Chen explained. We prepare for challenges. War is just one possible challenge. We also prepare for natural disasters, asteroid impacts, plague outbreaks, robot uprisings, and alien invasions. Alien invasions? Sure. We've been writing stories about alien invasions for over a century. Movies, books, games, military exercises. The basic scenarios are always the same. Advanced aliens show up and try to conquer us. Hansen nodded enthusiastically. And then humans have to use their creativity and determination to fight back against superior technology. It's one of our favorite story themes. But these are fictional stories, Admiral Zekthar protested. Fiction based on serious military planning, General Morrison corrected. Human defense forces have been studying theoretical alien invasion scenarios for decades. We wanted to be ready. Torres looked up from his tablet. Speaking of being ready, Captain, should we show them our fighter squadrons? The pilots have been asking if they can demonstrate some of our combat maneuvers. Great idea. Captain Chen turned back to Admiral Zekthar. Admiral, would you be interested in seeing some human fighter craft in action? Our pilots are really skilled, and they're dying to show off for a professional military audience. Admiral Zekthar closed the communication channel and turned to his officers. They want to show off, he said slowly. Sir? Commander Heckmole asked. They are treating this like a performance. They want to impress us with their military capabilities. Lieutenant Vexitar checked his instruments. Sir, their weapon systems are much more advanced than initial scans suggested. Those kinetic impactors hit with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. And they built them from mining equipment, Admiral Zekthar said. Yes, sir. If their industrial tools are this powerful, their actual military weapons must be formidable. Admiral Zekthar looked at the human ships on his viewing screen. They hung in space, like sleeping predators. Their simple appearance hiding sophisticated technology and crews that treated galactic warfare like a recreational activity. Sir, Commander Heckmole said quietly, what do we do with aliens who want to have fun fighting us? For the second time that day, Admiral Zekthar did not have an answer. Admiral Zekthar decided he needed to understand these strange humans better. Perhaps if he learned more about their motivations, he could find a way to defeat them. He opened communication channels again. Captain Chen, he said, I must ask you directly. Why are you not afraid? My fleet could destroy your ships easily. Most species surrender when they see our power. Captain Chen's smile somehow got even wider. Oh, we're definitely concerned about the danger, Admiral. But afraid? No, not really. Humans have been dreaming about this moment for too long to be scared when it finally happens. A new human appeared on screen. A woman wearing a different uniform with insignia that Admiral Zekthar did not recognize. Admiral Zekthar, the woman said. I'm Dr. Amanda Jackson, xenobiologist and cultural specialist. I think I can explain why humans are reacting this way. Please do, Zekthar replied, genuinely curious. Dr. Jackson pulled up a chair and sat down in front of the communication screen. Her expression was professional, but her eyes sparkled with the same excitement as the rest of the crew. For over 100 years, she began, human civilization has been preparing for exactly this scenario, not just militarily, but psychologically and culturally. We have imagined meeting advanced alien civilizations thousands of times in our entertainment media. Entertainment media? Stories, films, games, simulations, Dr. Jackson explained. Humans love to imagine what-if scenarios. And one of our most popular what-if questions has always been, what would happen if we met aliens who wanted to conquer us? Admiral Zekthar listened carefully. And what conclusions did you reach? That it would be the most exciting thing that could possibly happen to humanity, Dr. Jackson replied without hesitation. Every human child grows up reading stories about brave people fighting against impossible odds, space battles, alien empires, heroic last stands. These are the themes that define our culture. Captain Chen nodded enthusiastically. I read my first alien invasion story when I was 7 years old. It was about a small group of human fighters defending Earth against a massive alien fleet. I must have read that book 50 times. I played my first space combat simulation when I was 10, added Torres. Humans versus the Galactic Empire. I spent hours learning how to pilot fighters and coordinate fleet movements. Dr. Jackson continued her explanation. What you need to understand, Admiral, is that humanity's greatest fear was never that we would encounter hostile aliens. Our greatest fear was that we would be alone in the universe. Alone? Admiral Zekthar was confused. Yes. For decades, humans searched for signs of intelligent life. We built radio telescopes, sent out signals, launched space probes. We found nothing. Many humans began to worry that we might be the only intelligent species in the galaxy. General Morrison appeared on screen again. The possibility of cosmic loneliness terrified us more than any alien invasion ever could. At least if hostile aliens showed up, it would prove we weren't alone. So you prefer conquest to isolation? Admiral Zekthar asked. We prefer challenges to boredom, Captain Chen corrected. Humans are problem solvers by nature. We like obstacles to overcome, puzzles to solve, competitions to win. A galactic empire trying to conquer us isn't a disaster. It's the ultimate puzzle. Dr. Jackson pulled up some data on her tablet. Admiral, human history is full of examples of our species, thriving under pressure, wars, natural disasters, technological challenges. Difficult situations bring out the best in humanity. Your species enjoys conflict? We enjoy overcoming conflict, Torres clarified. There's a difference. We don't like suffering or destruction, but we love the feeling of rising to meet a challenge and succeeding against the odds. Hansen, the engineer, leaned into the conversation. It's like the difference between enjoying a difficult video game and enjoying real violence. The challenge is fun, but the actual pain and destruction aren't. Admiral Zekthar was beginning to understand something fundamental about human psychology. You treat serious situations like games? Not exactly, Dr. Jackson said thoughtfully. We treat serious situations like opportunities to prove ourselves. Games are just practice for real challenges. Captain Chen stood up and walked closer to the screen. Admiral, can I tell you something personal? Proceed. When I was a little girl, I used to look up at the stars and wonder if there was anyone out there looking back at me. I wondered what they would be like, what their ships would look like, whether they would be friends or enemies. Her expression became more serious, but the excitement never left her eyes. I joined the space fleet because I hoped that someday I would be the first human to meet another intelligent species. I spent years training for this moment, learning languages, studying xenobiology, practicing first contact protocols. She paused and looked at something off-screen before continuing. But more than anything else, I studied military tactics and space combat. Not because I wanted to fight aliens, but because every story, every simulation, every logical analysis suggested that first contact would probably involve some kind of conflict. So you prepared for war, Admiral Zekthar said. We prepared for the possibility of war, General Morrison corrected. But we also prepared for dozens of other scenarios: trade negotiations, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, exploration, partnerships. However, Dr. Jackson added, our entertainment media and military simulations showed a clear preference for conflict scenarios. Humans find stories about peaceful first contact. Well, boring. Torres laughed. Nobody wants to read a book about aliens showing up and everything going smoothly. Where's the drama in that? So you prefer dramatic situations? Admiral Zekthar asked. We prefer interesting situations, Captain Chen replied. And this, meeting an advanced alien empire in a potential combat scenario, this is the most interesting thing that has ever happened to humanity. Admiral Zekthar looked at his officers. Commander Hecamol was taking notes on everything the humans said. Lieutenant Vextar was monitoring their ship's energy signatures and weapon systems. Sir, Vextar said quietly, their enthusiasm appears to be genuine. Stress analysis of their vocal patterns shows excitement and anticipation, but no fear or deception. They really are enjoying this, Hecamol added. On the human ship, Dr. Jackson was showing Admiral Zekthar images on her tablet. These are some examples of human entertainment featuring galactic empires, she explained. Notice how the basic structure is always the same. Advanced aliens with superior technology encounter humans, there's a conflict, and then either the humans win through cleverness and determination, or they earn the respect of the aliens and become allies. The images showed humans fighting against various alien designs, some similar to the hegemony, others completely different. We have been rehearsing this scenario in our imaginations for generations, Dr. Jackson continued. Every possible variation, every tactical situation, every diplomatic approach. This isn't new to us. It's familiar. Captain Chen nodded. And now it's actually happening. We're living through the greatest adventure in human history. Adventure, Admiral Zekthar repeated. That's what humans call exciting experiences that involve risk and challenge, Torres explained. Adventures are what make life worth living. But you could die, Admiral Zekthar pointed out. Everything worth doing involves some risk of death, Hansen replied cheerfully. That's what makes it interesting. Admiral Zekthar closed the communication channel and turned to his officers. They think this is an adventure, he said slowly. Yes, sir, Commander Hecamol replied, and they appear to have been preparing for this specific adventure their entire lives. Not just their entire lives, Lieutenant Vextar corrected. Their entire civilization has been preparing for this for over a century. Admiral Zekthar looked at the human ships on his viewing screen. Small, simple-looking vessels that hid sophisticated technology and crews who treated first contact with a galactic empire like the fulfillment of their deepest dreams. Sir, Commander Hecamol said quietly, what do we do with aliens who have been hoping we would show up? Admiral Zekthar was beginning to think he knew the answer, and it worried him. Admiral Zekthar made a decision that went against 3 centuries of hegemony military doctrine. He was going to test these humans in actual combat to see if their confidence was justified. All ships, he commanded, begin attack pattern Omega-7. Target their engines and weapon systems. Disable. Do not destroy. Yes, sir, replied his weapons officer. The hegemony fleet moved into attack formation. Energy weapons powered up and fighter squadrons launched from the carrier ships. It was an impressive display of military coordination that had broken the spirit of countless civilizations. The human response was immediate and completely unexpected. Instead of panic or desperate defensive maneuvers, the human ships began moving in patterns that looked almost like a dance. Their fighters launched and formed up in tight formations that moved with impossible precision. And then Admiral Zekthar heard something that no military commander had ever heard during a space battle. The humans were playing music. What is that? Sound? Commander Hecamol asked. I believe it's called a battle song, Lieutenant Vextar replied, checking his translation systems. They appear to be singing while they fight. On the communication channel, Captain Chen's voice came through clearly over the music. All ships. This is defiance. Remember, people, this is what we trained for. Make it count. And someone turn up the music. I can barely hear it over the engine noise. The human ships moved like they were performing a complex choreographed routine. Their fighters weaved between hegemony plasma bolts with movements that seemed to ignore the basic laws of physics and common sense. "How are they doing that?" demanded the hegemony fighter commander over the communication system. "Doing what?" Admiral Zekthar asked. "Their fighters just performed a synchronized barrel roll through our missile barrage. No one flies like that in actual combat." On his viewing screen, Admiral Zekthar watched human fighters spinning and diving in patterns that were both beautiful and tactically brilliant. They moved like they were playing rather than fighting for their lives. "Torres to all fighters," came a voice over the human communication channels. "Remember what we practiced. Show these professionals how humans do aerobatics." The human fighters began performing maneuvers that Admiral Zekthar had never seen before. They spun and looped and rolled in ways that seemed designed more for entertainment than tactical advantage. But somehow, these impossible movements kept them alive and let them return fire with devastating accuracy. "They're not flying like they're trying to win a battle," observed Commander Heckamole. "They're flying like they're trying to win a competition." A hegemony fighter pilot's voice crackled over the communication system. "Command, one of the human fighters just sent me a message." "What did it say?" Admiral Zekthar asked. "Nice flying. Want to try that spiral maneuver again?" "Sir, I think they're giving me flying lessons in the middle of a space battle." On the main viewing screen, Captain Chen was coordinating her ship's defenses while laughing with pure joy. Her crew moved around the bridge with the kind of smooth efficiency that came from years of practice, but they all looked like they were having the time of their lives. "Engineering, I need more power to the forward shields," Captain Chen called out. "You got it, Captain," Hansen replied from somewhere off-screen. "This is so much better than the simulations." "I know, right?" Torres added from his fighter pilot. Station. "The real thing is way more fun." Admiral Zekthar watched his tactical display in growing amazement. The humans were not just holding their own against his superior fleet. They were winning. Their ships moved with coordination that spoke of countless hours of practice. Their weapons fired with precision that suggested intimate familiarity with space combat. But more than that, they fought with a creativity and enthusiasm that was completely outside his military experience. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "the humans are using their industrial equipment as weapons again. They just launched mining charges that are homing in on our destroyer escort." Mining charges? Explosive devices normally used for asteroid excavation, but they've been modified with guidance systems and shaped charges, very effective against ship hulls. A human voice came over the open communication channels. "Sorry about the mining charges. We know they're not standard military hardware, but they work really well for ship-to-ship combat." Admiral Zekthar realized that the humans were apologizing for using unconventional weapons, as if they were concerned about fighting unfairly. "Captain Chen," he called over the communication system, "why are you apologizing for effective tactics?" "Good. Sportsmanship," Captain Chen replied while dodging a plasma bolt. "Humans believe in fair play, even in combat. We want to win, but we want to win honorably. This is a battle, not a sporting event." "Why can't it be both?" Torres asked, performing another impossible maneuver. "Competition is competition, whether it's for fun or for real." Admiral Zekthar watched his fleet engagement reports with growing concern. The humans were not just matching his forces, they were outperforming them. Their tactics were unconventional but brilliant. Their coordination was flawless. Their technology, while different from hegemony standards, was remarkably effective. But what worried him most was their attitude. The humans fought like they were enjoying every moment of it. "All human fighters, this is General Morrison," came a voice over their communication channels. "Remember your training. These are real professionals, so show them our best work." "Roger that, General," came a chorus of replies. "This is awesome." Admiral Zekthar's headache was getting worse. The humans were treating his elite military fleet like a training exercise, and they were treating it like the best training exercise they had ever experienced. "Sir," Commander Hecamol said quietly, "perhaps we should consider a tactical withdrawal to reassess the situation." "Sir," Lieutenant Vextar interrupted, "the humans are sending us a communication request." "Put it through," Admiral Zekthar ordered. Captain Chen appeared on screen, her hair slightly messed up from the battle, but her smile brighter than ever. "Admiral Zekthar," she said, "this has been absolutely incredible. Your pilots are amazing, your tactics are brilliant, and your technology is fascinating. My crew has learned more about space combat in the last hour than we did in years of simulations." "You enjoyed the battle?" Admiral Zekthar asked weakly. "Are you kidding? This was the best day of my life. Our pilots are already asking if we can do this again sometime." Behind her, Torres appeared on screen, his face flushed with excitement. "Admiral, sir, your fighter pilots are incredible. Would it be possible to set up some kind of regular training exchange program?" "Training exchange?" General Morrison appeared next to Captain Chen. "What Torres means is, would your military be interested in regular war games with human forces? We could learn a lot from each other. Your tactical doctrine is fascinating, and I think our unconventional approaches might interest your strategists." Admiral Zekthar looked at his tactical display. The battle had ended in what could only be called a draw. Neither side had achieved decisive victory, but both sides had demonstrated impressive capabilities. More importantly, the humans had proven they were not afraid of the hegemony. They were excited by it. "You want to schedule regular battles with us?" he asked. "Why not?" Captain Chen replied. "Humans love competitive activities, and this was the most educational military exercise we've ever participated in." Dr. Jackson appeared on screen. "From an anthropological perspective, this could be the beginning of a fascinating cultural exchange. Our species could learn a great deal from each other." Cultural exchange through combat. Admiral Zekthar was having trouble understanding this concept. "Humans often form friendships through competition," Hansen explained, appearing briefly on screen. "Some of our best international relationships started with military conflicts. Former enemies become allies once they develop mutual respect." Admiral Zekthar closed the communication channel and looked at his officers. "They want to be friends with us," he said slowly. "Yes, sir," Commander Heckmole replied. "And they want to be friends with us by fighting us regularly." "This is completely outside standard hegemony protocols," Lieutenant Vextar observed. Admiral Zekthar opened the communication channel again. "Captain Chen," he said, "I need to understand something. You are not afraid of the hegemony?" "Not really," she replied honestly. "Concerned about the potential for conflict, yes. Worried about the safety of our people, absolutely. But afraid? No. You've given us exactly what humanity has been hoping for. Proof that we're not alone, and evidence that the universe is full of interesting challenges. What if we had destroyed your ships?" Captain Chen's expression became more serious, but she did not stop smiling. "Then we would have fought as hard as we could, and other humans would have learned from our example. That's how humans work. We try things, we learn from the results, and we get better. And if we had conquered your homeworld, then humans would have spent however long it took to figure out how to fight back," General Morrison replied. "Probably, while making friends with individual hegemony citizens and learning everything we could about your technology and culture." Admiral Zekthar realized he was facing something completely unprecedented in hegemony military history, a species that considered conquest an opportunity rather than a catastrophe.
The lost Earth ship returned, armed with reality-breaking technology. Part 1. The return, the alarm sounded across Earth Defense Station Alpha, causing everyone on the command deck to freeze. Admiral Franklin Carter looked up from his reports, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. Report, he ordered. Sir, we have an unidentified vessel that just appeared in orbit, said Lieutenant Joan Miller, her eyes wide as she stared at her screen. It just appeared out of nowhere. No approach vector. Impossible, Carter said, setting down his cup. Nothing can just appear. Sir, Joan interrupted, something she never did. The ship is broadcasting an Earth Alliance identification code. It's the ESS Pathfinder. The room went silent. Everyone knew about the Pathfinder. The exploration vessel had vanished without a trace 15 years ago during a deep space mission. All hands were presumed lost. That's not possible, Carter whispered. He had known many of the crew personally. Confirm that identification. Confirmed, sir. It's definitely broadcasting the Pathfinder's code. And, sir, they're requesting direct communication. Carter straightened his uniform. Put them through. The main screen flickered to life, and gasps echoed around the command deck. On screen was Commander Allison Wright, looking almost exactly as she had 15 years ago when the Pathfinder disappeared. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, but her eyes held something different, a depth and intensity that hadn't been there before. This is Commander Allison Wright of the ESS Pathfinder, requesting permission to dock and meet with Earth Alliance Command, she said calmly. Carter stepped forward. Commander Wright, this is Admiral Franklin Carter. Your ship has been missing for 15 years. We thought you were dead. A small smile crossed Wright's face. 15 years? Interesting. For us, it's been closer to 7. She leaned toward the camera. Admiral, I understand this is shocking, but we need to speak urgently. Earth may be in danger. Carter studied her face. Something was off about the ship, too. The camera view behind. Wright showed corridors that glinted with strange geometric patterns that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at them. Commander, we'll need to follow quarantine protocols. Of course, Admiral, Wright said, but I suggest you expedite the process. What we discovered out there changes everything. 3 hours later, Carter led a team of 5 onto the Pathfinder. 2 security officers, a medical doctor, and Earth's leading physicist, Lieutenant Gregory Pearson, joined him. The ship's airlock opened, revealing Commander Wright waiting patiently with her first officer, Ethan Kelly. Carter's first shock was how young they looked. Wright had been 38 when the Pathfinder launched. She should be in her 50s now, but she looked no older than 40. Welcome aboard, Admiral, Wright said, extending her hand. I apologize for our dramatic return. Carter shook her hand cautiously. Commander, you understand we have questions. Countless, I'm sure, she replied. Please, follow me to the briefing room. As they walked, Carter noticed the strange patterns he had glimpsed on the video call. The walls of the Pathfinder were covered in intricate geometric designs that seemed to shift and move when viewed from the corner of his eye. When he tried to focus directly on them, they appeared to be normal metal panels. Your ship looks different, he said carefully. Wright nodded. That's part of what we need to discuss. The briefing room was similarly changed. The standard conference table remained, but the walls featured the same shifting patterns. The entire crew of the Pathfinder waited inside, all 23 of them, all looking too young. Please sit, Wright offered. As they did, she remained standing. 7 years ago, by our time, we encountered a spatial anomaly near the edge of charted space. When we investigated, we found ourselves in contact with an advanced civilization who call themselves the Architects. Lieutenant Pearson leaned forward. Another intelligent species? That's the 4th we've encountered, yes, Wright said. But unlike the others, the Architects exist partially outside our understanding of physics. They perceive reality differently. Wright touched a panel on the wall, and a small device rose from the center of the table. It looked like a metallic cube with no visible seams, covered in the same shifting patterns as the walls. The Architects gave us technology that allows us to manipulate the fundamental laws of reality within limited spaces. Carter stared at the cube. That's impossible. I thought so too, Wright said with a smile. Ethan, would you demonstrate? The science officer nodded and placed his hand over the cube. It began to glow softly. He lifted his hand, and a small sphere of light formed above his palm. Then, impossibly, a pen from the table floated upward against gravity, into the sphere of light. We can create fields where certain physical laws can be selectively altered, Wright explained. Gravity, electromagnetic forces, even the passage of time. Pearson stood up and circled the demonstration, his face a mixture of disbelief and wonder. This breaks everything we know about physics. It doesn't break physics, Wright corrected. It just shows that reality is more flexible than we understood. Carter remained skeptical. And these architects just gave you this technology? Why? Wright's expression grew serious. Because they knew we would need it. She touched another panel, and a holographic display appeared above the table showing 3 massive angular ships. The architects were nearly destroyed by an expansionist, species called the Vex Imperium. The Vex have conquered dozens of star systems, and according to the architects' calculations, they're headed toward Earth. Is this some kind of joke? Carter asked. Before Wright could answer, the ship's alarm blared. A crew member rushed into the briefing room. Commander! 3 large vessels just appeared at the edge of the solar system. They matched the profile of the Vex ships. Carter felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible. Sir, the communications officer said, looking pale. They're broadcasting a message to Earth. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Wright looked at Carter with sad eyes. This is why we came back, Admiral. The architects sent us to prepare you. The Vex Imperium conquers through overwhelming technological superiority, but with what the architects gave us, humanity has a chance. A chance against what? Carter asked, already knowing the answer. Extinction, Wright said simply. The architects believe humanity has potential they haven't seen in thousands of years. That's why they gave us the means to defend ourselves, technology that can bend reality itself. As if to punctuate her words, the lights flickered as a distant boom echoed. Through the ship, the Vex had fired their first shot. The lost Earth ship returned, armed with reality-breaking technology. Part 2. The Harbingers. The command center of Earth Defense Station Alpha was in chaos. Screens showed the 3 massive Vex ships positioned just beyond Mars. Their angular, black hulls absorbed light rather than reflected it, making them look like holes cut into space itself. Admiral Carter paced in front of the main display while Commander Wright stood calmly beside him. The rest of the Pathfinder crew had joined them, standing apart from the station personnel who kept shooting them suspicious glances. Play the message again, Carter ordered. The screen flickered and showed a humanoid figure with gray skin stretched too tight over sharp facial features. Its eyes were large and entirely black. People of Earth, we are the Vex Imperium, your solar system is now under our control. Surrender all military assets and prepare for integration into the Imperium. You have 72 hours to comply. Resistance will result in planetary cleansing. The message ended and Carter turned to Wright. How did they find us? They've been coming for years, Wright said. The architects detected their approach long before we encountered them. That's why they gave us their technology. Lieutenant Pearson was examining data from the Vex ships on a tablet. Their energy readings are off the charts. One of those ships could probably destroy our entire fleet. The timing is too convenient, said General Helen Morris, Earth's highest-ranking military officer. This lost ship returns with miracle technology, just as these aliens appear. How do we know this isn't some kind of trick? Wright didn't seem offended. I understand your suspicion, General. I would feel the same in your position. But right now, we need to focus on the Vex. They aren't bluffing about planetary cleansing. You seem to know a lot about them, Morris said, eyes narrowed. The architects showed us records of Vex conquests, explained Ethan Kelly, the Pathfinder science officer. They're methodical. They first send scout ships to test defenses. As if responding to his words, one of the officers called out, Admiral, one of the alien vessels is breaking formation. A smaller craft is heading toward Earth. Carter looked at Wright. A scout ship? She nodded. They'll test our defensive capabilities before committing their main force. Then we should show them what we've got, Carter said. Prepare all defense satellites. Wright placed a hand on his arm. Admiral, your weapons won't harm them. Their shields operate on principles your technology can't overcome. What do you suggest? Carter asked, his voice tight with tension. Let us demonstrate what the architects gave us, Wright said. She turned to Kelly. Ethan, is the reality anchor ready? Kelly nodded. We can deploy it from the Pathfinder. General Morris stepped forward. You're not deploying anything without approval and supervision. We don't have time for bureaucracy, Wright argued. That scout ship will be in weapons range in 17 minutes. Carter looked between them, then made his decision. Commander Wright, you have provisional authority to demonstrate this technology. General Morris, assign a team to observe. If there's any indication of betrayal, we'll destroy the Pathfinder ourselves. Wright smiled slightly. That's fair. 20 minutes later, Carter watched from the Pathfinder's bridge as the crew prepared their defense. The Vex scout ship was now visible through the view screen, a smaller version of the main vessels but still 3 times the size of the largest Earth ship. Reality anchor is ready, Kelly reported from his station. Wright turned to Carter. Admiral, what you're about to see will challenge everything you understand about physics. She nodded to Kelly, who pressed a sequence on his console. Outside the ship, a small satellite detached from the Pathfinder and moved toward the approaching Vex vessel. The anchor creates a field where we can selectively alter the laws of physics, Wright explained. Watch what happens when the Vex weapons enter that field. The scout ship fired, a beam of intense blue energy streaking toward Earth. As it passed near the small satellite, something impossible happened. The beam didn't stop or deflect. It simply transformed, the deadly energy dissipating into countless motes of harmless light that scattered like fireflies. What just happened? Carter asked, staring in disbelief. We changed how energy transfers in that space, Kelly explained. We rewrote the laws of thermodynamics within the field. Their weapons' energy had nowhere to go except to convert to visible light. The scout ship fired again with the same result. Then it changed tactics, launching what looked like missiles. As they entered the field, they slowed to a stop, hanging motionless in space. Time dilation, Wright said. Within that field, time is passing at 1/10,000th the normal rate. Those missiles will take years to cross a distance of a few kilometers. The Vex ship paused its attack, apparently assessing this unexpected defense. Then it suddenly accelerated, attempting to bypass the field and attack from another angle. They're adaptive, Wright warned. This is just the beginning. Kelly worked his console again, and the reality anchor moved, expanding its field to intercept the scout ship's new attack vector. This time, when the Vex fired, their beam curved in an impossible arc, looping back toward their own vessel. Space curvature manipulation, Kelly explained. We altered the geometric properties of space itself. The scout ship took evasive action, retreating to a safe distance. Then it simply disappeared, presumably returning to its fleet. They'll report what they've seen, Wright said, and they'll recognize the technology. Carter stared at the empty space where the Vex ship had been. You turned their weapons into light. You stopped time. You bent space itself. This is reality engineering, Wright finished for him, and this was just a small demonstration. The architects built their entire civilization on these principles. Back at the defense station, Carter gathered Earth's military leadership. The mood had shifted from skepticism to cautious hope. The reality anchor worked, Carter reported. The Vex weapons were completely neutralized. Can we replicate this technology? General Morris asked. Lieutenant Pearson, who had observed the demonstration, shook his head. The principles involved, they're beyond our current understanding. The mathematics alone would take years to decipher. We don't have years, Wright said. But we can help you implement the existing technology. The Pathfinder can produce more reality anchors, enough to create a defensive perimeter around Earth. And then what? Morris asked. We just sit behind this shield forever? No, Wright said firmly. The architects didn't just give us defensive technology. They showed us how to fight back. She activated a small device, and a hologram appeared, showing the Pathfinder, but transformed further than its current state. The shifting patterns covered the entire hull, and sections of the ship seemed to phase in and out of existence. This is what the Pathfinder will become, Wright said. A ship that can manipulate reality itself, not just defensively but offensively. The Vex aren't invincible. The architects fought them to a standstill with this technology. And they expect us to finish the fight, Carter realized. Wright nodded gravely. Humanity stands at a crossroads, Admiral. The Vex will return with their full force. When they do, we need to be ready. Across the room, alarms began to sound. An officer called out, "Sir, the Vex mother ships are moving into attack formation. They're coming." The Lost Earth ship returned, armed with reality-breaking technology. Part 3. Understanding the Impossible. Earth's best scientists gathered in a hastily converted hangar of Defense Station Alpha. In the center of the room sat one of the reality anchors from the Pathfinder, its surface covered in the strange shifting patterns that seemed to move when no one was looking directly at them. Dr. Sofia Martinez, Earth's leading expert on theoretical physics, circled the device with a mix of wonder and frustration on her face. "This breaks every law of physics we know," she said. "It shouldn't be possible." Lieutenant Gregory Pearson nodded in agreement. "And yet we all saw what it did to the Vex weapons." Outside the station, a fleet of Earth ships formed a protective ring. Beyond them, the Vex motherships remained in position, having not advanced since their scout ship returned. The 72-hour deadline was still in effect, with just 52 hours remaining. The door to the hangar opened, and Ethan Kelly from the Pathfinder entered. Unlike the Earth scientists who looked exhausted from working around the clock, Kelly seemed energized and calm. "How is it going?" he asked. Dr. Martinez gestured at the equipment surrounding the reality anchor. "We can measure what it does, but not how it does it. It's like trying to understand a smartphone with stone tools." Kelly smiled. "That's actually a good comparison. The architects are as far beyond us as we are beyond cavemen." "Then how did you learn to use their technology?" Pearson asked. "They taught us," Kelly said simply. "But more importantly, they changed us to help us understand." The scientists exchanged glances. "Changed you how?" Martinez asked cautiously. Kelly hesitated, then said, "They altered our brains to perceive reality more like they do. It's hard to explain, but I can see the patterns now. Not just the physical patterns on the devices, but the patterns in reality itself." He approached the reality anchor and placed his hand on it. The patterns beneath his palm brightened and seemed to flow toward his fingers. "The patterns are instructions," he explained. "They tell reality how to behave differently." Pearson moved closer, fascinated. "Can you teach us to see these patterns?" "I can try," Kelly said, "but it took us years with the architects. We don't have years now." In another part of the station, Commander Wright showed Admiral Carter and General Morris the records of the Pathfinder's encounter with the architects. The screen displayed images of enormous crystalline structures floating in space, changing shape as they watched. "This is their home system," Wright explained. "Or at least what their home system looks like to human perception." "They look like space stations," Morris observed. Wright shook her head. "They're living beings, but they exist partly in dimensions we can't perceive. What you're seeing is just the three-dimensional shadow of their true form." "And they just decided to help humanity?" Carter asked skeptically. "Not exactly," Wright said. "They've been watching us for centuries. They believe humanity has potential they haven't seen in thousands of years of observing other species. But they also knew the Vex were expanding in our direction." She changed the display to show the Vex ships attacking a planet, energy weapons reducing cities to ash in seconds. "The Vex have conquered 47 star systems," Wright continued. "They find worlds with resources they need, eliminate any resistance, and strip the planets bare. Then they move on." "Why didn't the architects stop them?" Morris asked. "They tried," Wright said. "They fought the Vex to a standstill, but the conflict nearly destroyed both civilizations. The architects withdrew to their home system, and the Vex avoid them now. But the Vex keep expanding in other directions." So the architects are using us to fight their war, Carter said grimly. Wright looked him directly in the eyes. No, Admiral. They're giving us the means to survive. And if we master this technology, humanity will never be threatened by any species again. Back in the science hangar, Dr. Martinez made a discovery. She had connected a series of sensors to the reality anchor while Kelly explained its basic functions. When she activated it, the readings spiked in patterns that seemed random at first. Wait, she said suddenly, staring at her screen. These energy fluctuations, they're not random. She turned to Kelly. They're following Fibonacci sequences and other natural mathematical patterns. Kelly nodded, looking pleased. The architects taught us that mathematics isn't just how we describe reality. It's what reality is made of. When you understand the equations deeply enough, you can rewrite them. Pearson's eyes widened. So this isn't magic or even super advanced technology, it's applied mathematics? At its core, yes, Kelly confirmed. The architects exist in a state where they directly perceive these mathematical patterns. For them, changing reality is as simple as solving an equation. Martinez typed rapidly on her keyboard. If that's true, then we might be able to understand this faster than I thought. We just need to analyze the mathematical patterns this device creates when active. A loud alarm interrupted their breakthrough. The station's warning system blared, and red emergency lights flashed. "Attention all personnel," came Admiral Carter's voice over the speaker system. "The Vex have launched smaller craft toward Earth. All science teams secure your equipment. Defense teams to battle stations." Pearson looked at the clock. They still had 48 hours in their own ultimatum. They were never going to wait, Kelly said grimly. They've studied our defenses enough. Now they're testing if the reality anchors can protect the whole planet. In the command center, Wright joined Carter as they watched the approaching Vex vessels on the main screen. 8 attack ships, Carter said, targeting major cities around the globe. "How many anchors do we have ready?" Wright asked. 3, Carter replied. "We've positioned them to protect New York, Beijing, and London." Wright's face darkened. "It won't be enough. The Pathfinder's anchor protected your ship. Can we expand their range?" "Possibly," Wright said, "but it would take time we don't have." She hesitated, then added, "There is another option. The Pathfinder itself has been extensively modified. We could position it in Earth's atmosphere and create a larger field." "What would that do to your ship?" Carter asked. "Burn through our power reserves," Wright admitted. "We might not be able to leave orbit afterward." Carter studied her face. "You'd sacrifice your only way home?" "Earth is our home, Admiral," Wright said firmly. "We always intended to come back." The lieutenant at the tactical station called out, "Sir, Vex ships entering Earth's atmosphere, impact in 5 minutes." Carter made his decision. "Do it, Commander." Wright nodded and activated her communicator. "Pathfinder, this is Commander Wright. Begin atmospheric descent. Prepare for full reality field deployment." The Pathfinder moved into position above the Atlantic Ocean, its strange hull now glowing with bright blue light as the patterns across its surface began to move more rapidly. In the science hangar, Dr. Martinez stared at her readings in disbelief. "The energy output from the Pathfinder is off the charts. What are they doing?" Kelly smiled sadly. "Something we hoped we wouldn't need to do so soon. They're creating a reality bubble around the entire planet." The Lost Earth ship returned, armed with reality-breaking technology. Part 4. The Battle of Earth. The Pathfinder hovered in Earth's upper atmosphere, its hull pulsing with bright blue light. The strange geometric patterns covering the ship now moved visibly, flowing like liquid across its surface. Inside the ship, Commander Wright stood on the bridge, her hands placed on a control panel that glowed with the same blue light. "Reality field expanding," she announced, her voice strained. "Covering Northern Hemisphere now." On the main view screen they could see the approaching Vex attack ships, 8 angular vessels cutting through the atmosphere, heading for Earth's major cities. The ships were firing energy weapons at Earth's conventional defenses, destroying satellites and aircraft with ease. "Field at 60% coverage," Wright continued. "Southern Hemisphere coming online. Admiral Carter watched from Defense Station Alpha as a shimmering, barely visible dome began to form around the planet. It looked like heat distortion in the air, a wavering in reality itself. "Will it stop them?" he asked over the communication channel. "It should," Wright replied. "But we've never attempted a field this large before." The first Vex ship reached the edge of the reality field and fired its main weapon. Instead of the beam dissipating into light as it had before, something even stranger happened. The beam seemed to fold in on itself, creating a twisted knot of energy that collapsed into nothing. "What just happened?" Carter asked. "We altered the dimensional properties of space within the field," Wright explained. "Their energy weapons try to travel in a straight line, but inside our field, straight lines connect back to themselves." The Vex ships paused their advance, seemingly confused by this new defense. Then they changed tactics, launching physical projectiles instead of energy beams. "They're adaptive," Wright warned, "adjusting field properties now." As the projectiles entered the reality field, they suddenly sprouted branches, each missile splitting into hundreds of identical copies that became smaller and smaller until they vanished completely. "Probability cascade," Wright explained. "We're forcing the missiles to experience every possible quantum state simultaneously. They can't maintain physical cohesion." On Earth's surface, populations watched in awe as the sky shimmered and rippled. The strange battle playing out above them was unlike anything humans had ever witnessed. Vex weapons and attacks kept failing, in increasingly bizarre ways as they encountered the reality field. In the science hangar, Dr. Martinez and Lieutenant Pearson worked frantically with Ethan Kelly to understand what was happening. "The Pathfinder is creating a bubble where our laws of physics are selectively altered," Kelly explained, pointing to their readings. "It's like creating a new set of rules for reality within that space." "Can the Vex counter this?" Martinez asked. Kelly's expression darkened. "Eventually. Their technology is highly adaptive, and the Pathfinder can't maintain a field this size for long." As if confirming his words, the lights in the station flickered. On the communication channel, they heard Wright's voice, now clearly strained. "Power reserves at 40%. Field stability dropping." 3 of the Vex ships had retreated, but 5 continued their approach, probing for weaknesses in the reality field. One ship found a thin spot and pushed through, heading directly for New York City. "New York defense anchor, activate now," Carter ordered. The reality anchor positioned over New York created its own smaller field. When the Vex ship fired on the city, its weapons curved upward, missing their targets completely. The ship tried to descend lower, but suddenly found itself unable to move forward, as if stuck in invisible molasses. "Time dilation field," Kelly explained, watching the readings. "The anchor is slowing down time for that ship by a factor of 1,000. What seems like seconds to us is hours for them." Similar scenes played out over Beijing and London as Vex ships breached the weakening planetary field, but were countered by the local anchors. However, 2 ships targeted cities without anchor protection, Rio de Janeiro and Cairo. "We need more anchors," Carter shouted. "We're building them as fast as we can," Martinez replied, "but it takes time to program each one." On the Pathfinder's bridge, Wright made a difficult decision. "We need to concentrate the field where it's most needed," dropping Southern Hemisphere coverage to reinforce the Northern Shield. As she did this, the reality field visibly strengthened over North America, Europe, and Asia, but faded over the southern half of the planet. The Vex ships immediately detected the change, and 3 vessels moved to attack the now vulnerable southern cities. "They're going for Rio," Carter said grimly. "We have no defenses there." Wright's voice came over the channel, unnaturally calm. "Yes, we do." The Pathfinder suddenly broke from its position and dove toward the southern hemisphere, moving at impossible speed. The ship seemed to stretch and distort as it flew, leaving trails of blue light behind it. It reached Rio just moments before the Vex ship. "What is she doing?" Carter asked, watching the Pathfinder position itself between the Vex ship and the city. Kelly's eyes widened as he read the energy signatures. "She's creating a localized reality pocket. Something we've never tried before." The Vex ship fired, its main weapon directly at the Pathfinder. Instead of defending, the Earth ship seemed to absorb the energy beam. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to ripple outward from the Pathfinder. The Vex ship suddenly twisted as, if being seen through a broken mirror. Its hull stretched and compressed in impossible ways. Then it simply folded in on itself, collapsing into a point of light that quickly vanished. "What just happened?" Carter demanded. "They created a causal loop," Kelly whispered, staring at the readings in disbelief. "They trapped the Vex ship in a recursive time sequence where it destroys itself over and over." The Pathfinder didn't stop. It moved to intercept the ship, threatening Cairo, repeating the process. This time, the Vex vessel attempted to escape, but space itself seemed to curve around it, preventing its retreat. Like the first ship, it collapsed into nothing. On the command bridge of Defense Station Alpha, cheers erupted as the tactical display showed 2 enemy ships eliminated. But the celebration was short-lived. "The Pathfinder's power signature is fading," reported an officer. "They're running on emergency reserves." The communication channel crackled, and Wright's voice came through, now clearly exhausted. "We've demonstrated what the technology can do. The remaining Vex ships are retreating to their mother vessels." "Commander, your ship's energy levels are critical," Carter said. "Return to orbit immediately." "Not yet," Wright replied. "We need to show the Vex we can hit their motherships too." Kelly shook his head in alarm. "They can't. Using the causal loop weapon twice has nearly drained them. A third use could destroy the Pathfinder itself." But the Pathfinder was already climbing back toward space, its hull now pulsing with dim, irregular light. It positioned itself above Earth, facing the 3 massive Vex motherships that remained just beyond the moon's orbit. "What is she planning?" Carter asked. "Something the architects showed us but warned us never to use except in the most desperate circumstances," Kelly replied, his voice tight with worry. "They're going to create a probability fracture." On the view screen, the Pathfinder began to glow again, not with blue light this time, but with a strange purple radiance that hurt the eyes to look at directly. The light built to blinding intensity, then suddenly shot forward in a beam that stretched across space toward the lead Vex mothership. When the beam struck, reality itself seemed to shatter around the massive vessel. The ship appeared to exist in multiple places simultaneously, overlapping versions of itself occupying the same space. These phantom ships flickered and changed, showing different configurations, different states of damage, different positions. "They've forced the ship to exist in multiple timelines at once," Kelly explained, his voice filled with awe. "The quantum probability wave function has been expanded to macroscopic scale. The Vex mothership struggled against this impossible attack, its own reality manipulation technology trying to counter the effect. For several minutes, the battle of realities continued, with neither side able to gain the advantage. Then suddenly the Pathfinder's beam cut off. The Earth ship drifted, its lights completely dark now. "Pathfinder, report," Carter called urgently. There was no response. The lost Earth ship returned, armed with reality-breaking technology. Part 5. A new reality, silence filled the command center of Defense Station Alpha. On the main screen, the Pathfinder drifted in space, dark and seemingly lifeless. The Vex mother ship it had attacked was still visible, its form shifting and wavering as it existed in multiple realities at once. "Pathfinder, do you copy?" Admiral Carter repeated for the 5th time. No response came. Lieutenant Pearson studied the readings from the Earth ship. "There's no power signature at all. They burned through everything they had with that last attack." "Can we send a rescue team?" Carter asked. "It would take hours to reach them," General Morris replied. "And we don't know if the Vex will launch another attack." As they debated, the 2 remaining Vex motherships suddenly began to move. Everyone tensed, expecting another assault. Instead, the massive vessels turned away from Earth and accelerated, quickly disappearing from the solar system. "They're retreating," Morris said in disbelief. "But why?" Carter wondered. "They still outnumber us." Ethan Kelly spoke up from where he stood with Dr. Martinez. "They recognize the probability fracture weapon. It's similar to what the architects used against them in their war. The Vex fear it more than anything." So we won? Morris asked cautiously. For now, Kelly replied. But they'll be back with countermeasures. This was just the first battle. Carter turned his attention back to the Pathfinder. We need to get to Commander Wright and her crew. 6 hours later, a rescue ship docked with the powerless Pathfinder. The rescue team found the crew alive, but exhausted. Commander Wright was unconscious on the bridge, her hands still on the control panel that had channeled the reality-bending energy. Back at the station's medical bay, Dr. Leslie Barnes examined the Pathfinder crew with growing concern. Their cellular structure is changing, she reported to Carter. Especially Commander Wright's. It's like their bodies are being rewritten at the quantum level. Is it dangerous? Carter asked. I don't know, Barnes admitted. It's nothing I've ever seen before, but they're stable for now. Wright regained consciousness the next day. Carter was by her bedside when she opened her eyes. Did it work? Were her first words. The Vex retreated. Carter confirmed. Your ship is being repaired, but it will take time. Wright nodded weakly. The probability fracture was a last resort. The architects warned us about using it. They said it changes the users as much as it changes reality. The doctors have noticed changes in your cellular structure, Carter said carefully. It's to be expected, Wright replied. The more we use the technology, the more it alters us. The architects said it's part of the evolution they foresaw for humanity. Evolution into what? Carter asked. Before Wright could answer, Dr. Martinez burst into the room. Admiral, you need to see this, she said excitedly. We've had a breakthrough with the reality anchors. In the science hangar, Martinez and Pearson had assembled a new version of the reality anchor. It was smaller than the original, with simpler patterns on its surface. We've been studying the mathematical principles behind the technology, Martinez explained. With Kelly's help, we've created a more efficient version that Earth can manufacture without direct Pathfinder assistance. How many can we make? Carter asked. Dozens within weeks, Pearson replied. Eventually hundreds. Enough to create a permanent defensive shield around Earth and all our colonies. Carter looked impressed. That quickly? Once we understood the basic principles, it wasn't as alien as we first thought, Martinez said. The mathematics have always existed. We just never thought to apply them this way. Over the next month, Earth's scientists and engineers worked alongside the Pathfinder crew to build new reality anchors and understand more of the architect's technology. Wright recovered her strength, though the doctors continued to monitor the changes in her body. In a private meeting with Earth's leaders, Wright revealed the final gift from the architects. They gave us coordinates, she said, projecting a star map on the conference room wall. This is their home system. They've invited humanity to join them once we've mastered their technology. Join them? General Morris asked skeptically. As what? Allies? Students? As equals, Wright replied. They believe humans have the potential to understand reality as they do. They've been watching us for centuries, and they see something in us that they haven't found in other species. The ability to manipulate reality is a powerful weapon, Morris noted. We could ensure Earth's safety for generations. It's more than a weapon, Wright countered. It's a new way of existing. The architects don't think in terms of weapons and defenses. They see reality itself as fluid, as something that can be shaped for the benefit of all conscious beings. Admiral Carter studied the star map. How long would it take to reach them? With conventional drives, decades, Wright said. But with reality engineering, we could be there in months. The Pathfinder's drive system was only partly converted before we returned to worn Earth. A fully converted ship could fold space itself, making distance meaningless. As they discussed the future, an officer entered the room with urgent news. Sir, we're receiving signals from the Proxima Centauri colony. They've been silent for years, but they're broadcasting again. Put it through, Carter ordered. The main screen activated, showing a woman in a uniform similar to Wright's but with different insignia. This is Captain Lisa Owen of the ESS Horizon, responding to Earth's broadcast about the Vex attack. We encountered a similar species 3 years ago, but were assisted by beings calling themselves the Shapers. The room fell silent in shock. "Captain," Owen continued, "the Shapers gave us technology that allowed us to defeat the invaders. We've been adapting it to our ships and colony defenses. When we detected the reality fluctuations from your battle, we recognized the signature." "Are you working with the architects?" Wright stepped forward. "Yes. You said the Shapers. What did they look like?" "We couldn't perceive their true form," Owen replied. "They existed partially outside our dimensional reality." Wright turned to Carter, her eyes wide. "The architects have been helping other human colonies too. They're preparing all of humanity, not just Earth." In the days that followed, more colonies made contact, each with stories of mysterious advanced beings who had given them pieces of reality manipulation technology. None had received the full range of knowledge that the Pathfinder crew had, but together, humanity now possessed a more complete understanding. Dr. Martinez developed a theory. The architects, or Shapers, or whatever names they used, were testing humanity, giving different colonies different aspects of the technology to see what we would do with it. 2 months after the battle, a new ship was ready. Built using both Earth technology and the architect's principles, it was named the ESS Unity. Larger than the Pathfinder, its hull gleamed with the now familiar shifting patterns, but integrated smoothly with human design. Commander Wright stood with Admiral Carter at the observation deck, watching the final preparations. "Will you lead the mission to the architect's home system?" Carter asked. Wright looked down at her hands, which now sometimes shimmered with the same patterns as the reality technology. "Yes. But this is just the beginning, Admiral. Humanity is taking its first steps into a larger reality. What the architects offered us isn't just a weapon against the Vex. It's a new way of existing." "A new reality," Carter said thoughtfully. "Exactly," Wright replied. "One where the only limits are what we can imagine and calculate. The architects believe that humanity's creativity, combined with their understanding of reality's underlying structure, could lead to something neither of us could achieve alone." As the Unity prepared for its historic mission, Earth continued to build its defenses. The Vex would return eventually, but humanity would be ready. And perhaps by then, humans would be something more than they had been before, a species that could shape reality itself, limited only by imagination and the mathematics that governed all things. The lost ship had returned, bringing not just a weapon, but a future beyond anything humanity had dreamed possible.